Hi everyone, welcome to the BNB Abu Dhabi online workshop. Today we will explore the next-gen trading and liquidity. We have two amazing projects joining us today, FOMO and Thina, who will share their insights, experience, and real use cases to help you build. Without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker, Say, co-founder and CPO of FOMO. Hi, Say.
Hey, how's it going?
That's great. And the stage, over to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. So today I'm excited to share with everyone FOMO. It's a trading app for the rest of us. It's something that we've been working on for the better part of this year. We launched back in May after forming formally a team back in February, and we've been in market for about 6 months. So far, we've done about $1 billion of volume in spot. We have 150,000 users, and we're continuing to grow each and every day. So the main reason we decided to create FOMO is, we spent a lot of time as a team building different projects, DYDX, Uniswap, OpenSea, and a couple of other smaller projects in crypto. And, we've been building for consumers, but they've been crypto consumers. I think one of the things that this industry, has largely ignored is trying to build for the average user, the person who doesn't really understand crypto. So if you kind of take a look at crypto today, it's very painful and users often have no clue what's going on. So a new user will join crypto and they need to go join a centralized exchange. They need to KYC. They need to be able to buy, Solana, Ethereum, other base assets, and then be able to actually move this over to a decentralized wallet if they want to trade on chain. So one of the friction points that, we often see is we have a lot of friends who, hey, I want to trade these coins that you're trading on chain. They're not available. They're not listed. They're not, easily accessible. So in order for them to do this, they have to go through the exchange. They have to wait a few days for transfers. They have to, download their seed phrase, understand how to properly store it. Then they have to actually go on and figure out how to use the complexities of crypto on chain. Often there's a lot of issues that you run into, like you don't know you need the native gas token. You don't know you need to set the correct RPCs. You don't know that you need to have the correct priority fees. And I think what often ends up happening is there's also a lack of discovery. So you think you're buying a certain token, you go buy it, and often, it's very difficult to understand why you lost your money. I think that it's difficult in today's day and age for the average person to go and look through the block explorers. They're very clunky. There's a lot of, alphanumeric strings. There's a lot of technical data. And I think for the average person, this just isn't something they'll ever get to learn. So FOMO essentially was created to solve some of crypto's largest adoption blockers. So it's very simple to onboard and very simple to use. You onboard in seconds with Apple ID or Google. You can use Apple Pay to seamlessly check out and buy tokens. And it's something that's cross-platform all under one identity. So you actually can develop an identity on this app, and soon we'll release web version and Telegram versions as well, where you can cross-sync your identity across the mobile app, across Telegram, and across the web. And it's fully abstracted experience where you don't know what chains are under the hood, and you don't need to have a concept of gas fees or bridging or really anything that I think the average user today doesn't have to experience to be able to trade these assets. And a large part of the app itself is discovery of users and discovery of tokens. So a lot of this app is built with a purpose-built intent to help users discover tokens, traders, and strategies that matter. So you have this global feed where you're actually able to see what is going on in crypto. People are buying tokens, people are closing positions. There's a lot of people buying specific tokens, you name it. You're essentially as a normal user, able to be tapped into the flow of what's going on chain. You can follow friends and see specifically what they're doing. You get notified when people buy and sell. You get notified of events like verifications, events that are happening on chain, daily summaries, weekly newsletters, and you really have all the tooling that you need for yourself to be able to trade and for you to share with friends as well. And this all only matters as long as the actual infrastructure works, right? So we have some of the best in class execution where we have real-time prices, P&Ls, and balances. This is something that I think even the biggest EOA wallets today struggle with, where maybe your portfolio balance is correct, but your P&L on a day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month is just not accurate. So we take very big importance in making sure that you have the proper data at all times and you can properly track your positions. We have the fastest swaps in the market, so roughly less than 2 seconds across all the chains that we support. This is something that we ended up working very closely on the infrastructure side to make sure that we can sign keys faster whenever users do declare the intent to sign, backed by Privy. We have the best quotes. So we're able to use multiple aggregators to be able to get the best quotes for users. And this is something that I think a lot of users who come into crypto early struggle with. They don't know, where should I go for the best pools? What are aggregators? How do I know I'm able to buy these tokens without being at a severe disadvantage? We take care of all those issues for you. And up to date, we have a 97% swap success rate. I think that a lot of this is still kind of an improving process, but we use dynamic slippage and proprietary swap submission logic so that users can always get the best fills, the fastest fills, and always have the greatest amount of success doing so. So the reason why this is important is I think predominantly most normies and most crypto native or non-crypto native users have lived on centralized exchanges. I think this has been great for adoption, for onboarding, for SEO. Places like Binance, Coinbase, Robinhood really have done a great job of getting new users into the space, making it a very seamless experience to buy a subset of assets. I think that while this is great, these exchanges often, have somewhere in the hundreds of assets, and they're typically highly vetted, and they have liquidity, and they're all kind of checked against safety parameters. But I think that often users do want another method to trade the millions of assets that exist across different chains, right? I think that each of the exchanges that I mentioned, Binance, Coinbase, Robinhood, all have wallet counterparts or wallet partners, and these partners allow you to access the assets on chain. We think that this shouldn't be a second-class citizen. This should be something where if there's on-chain assets you want to trade, you should be able to do it seamlessly, simply by finding the token, putting an amount, and sliding to buy, just like you would on any exchange today. And I think this is something that more and more exchanges are taking note of. In this graphic here today, you see that there's news that Robinhood's actually launching stock tokens. They're launching a layer 2 next year, and they're really taking on-chain trading a lot more seriously. Coinbase is doing similar, unlocking millions of assets with DEX trading. And obviously this is a really big push for Binance and BNB Chain as well. So why is FOMO something that is positioned to win? Well, today FOMO, there are all assets that are instantly tradable. It's non-custodial, so you own your keys. There's social discovery, where it's powered by some of crypto's best traders. These are guys who are making, $100K, $500K, $1 million a day publicly. They do so very transparently on the platform, where you can actually get notified of their buys and sells, and you can actually discover tokens alongside them. You no longer have to set up multiple wallet trackers. You don't have to live on multiple meme scopes or pulse scans. You don't have to really be plugged into what's going on at all times, because now you have the information directly coming to you. It's an embedded wallet. It's simple and contained UX. Everything is fully transparent, multi-chain, multi-platform, versus some of the competitors that I have mentioned. Historically, trading apps have no education. They're not multi-platform. They generally don't service multi-chain, and they're pretty complex for the average person to use. EOA wallets, I think, have been great in ushering this experience of, hey, I can access a lot of things across DeFi and on-chain, but they're typically not really purpose-built. They're not built for trading. They're not built for discovery. And I think that there's fragmentation across experiences when you go across different chains. And centralized exchanges, I think these have done a really good job of bringing in new users, and they'll still continue to be a bulk of new users and volume for the time being. But I think generally there's limited assets, it's permissioned, and it's generally not built for discovery as well. So yeah, that's what we built in a very high level. Where we are today is we are the top mobile cross-chain trading app. We've done $1 billion of spot volume in 6 months, and we have roughly 150,000 lifetime users. Some other things we've kind of done along the way since we've launched since we've incorporated early this year is we raised an angel round with 140 angels in February. This is a lot of CEOs, general partners, traders, operators, and people that we've generally thought would be very valuable to building FOMO from the ground up. So what this allowed us to do is create a distribution channel of having a set of users that we can deem to be power users from early on, and really get their feedback to continue to iterate quickly over time. And we did that round in February. We launched in May. We continued to grow through June, July, August. We raised the Series A in October, and here we are in November today as one of the top mobile trading apps in crypto. And I think that often, people have different philosophies on building. I think some people think that I'm building a highly technical product. I should, spend 3 years to build it and get to market whenever it's ready. Other people think I should ship an MVP in a week. And I think, I'm not saying this will work necessarily in the same ways that it did for you, but for us, some of the things that we did is, we built real relationships networks early on. So we we didn't place ourselves into a situation where we didn't know who our first users would be, or who would be able to be thought partners throughout the process. We spent a lot of years building in the space. As I mentioned earlier, our entire team spent time building across a number of crypto projects, DYDX, Uniswap, OpenSea, and some others. And a lot of these teams, we played some early roles in actually going 0 to 1. So we were able to build a lot of relationships with different builders, with different investors, institutional partners, and we really did leverage these along the way. And then the other thing we did here was we co-built with early power users. I think that the trickiest part in crypto, it's kind of a double-sided knife, is one, you can get users very easily with incentives and different distribution system programs and points and all these different things that you can do to actually get users. But I think the drawback of that is these users are often not sticky, and they're very, very mercenary. So they're able to rotate very quickly. They will leave as soon as incentives dry up, and all that really stands is the product itself when all these things are kind of said and done. So what we did is, once we got our first 100, 200 users, we built chats with them. We spent every day talking to them. We really try to understand, why do you use this app? How can we make it better? And what do you see this envision? What do you see this looking like? And what do you envision, over the course of the next months and years? And how do we become the place that essentially makes your life easier? How do we make it such that you do all of your trading across all of the asset types on one platform? And we really took that feedback seriously. We continued to iterate quickly. We continued to listen to users. We continued to dogfood our product. And I think that this is something that is very underrated in crypto for some reason. I feel that a lot of product minds in crypto think, I'm going to go build this product that I think is really perfect. I'm going to ship it to market. Everybody's going to love it. I would say that that's often a fatal flaw, because you spend a lot of time building this product. You maybe spend a year building a trading app, and by the time it launches, nobody uses it. And you kind of have to start from ground zero right away. So I would encourage people who are building to really test with their users. People like your product initially to try it. They should be the people that you build the product around, so they continue to stay through the course of time. And I think in crypto generally, 100 loyal users are much more valuable than 10,000 people who are going to rotate as soon as there's nothing in it for them. So we continued to do that very early. And obviously, most of that is not possible. You can't ship really quickly. You can't co-build with users, and you can't have real relationship networks if you don't have a strong foundational team. So we spent a lot of time, creating a strong foundational team that could do everything end to end: engineering, product, BD, marketing, growth, really everything in between. And so far, 6 months in, we're still a very lean team of 11. We cover a lot of different functions at the individual level. There's a lot of ownership, and you really need to have a strong foundational team that can kind of iterate quickly and distribute quickly as well. The other thing that we did was we focused on 10x UX improvement. I think that often crypto users are willing to pretty much go through any hurdle if it means trying something new and shiny. I think that they'll set up new wallets, they'll use new bridges, they'll use new chains, they'll do all sorts of funky things to be able to go and find a way to speculate on making money. I think this is very different for the normal user, the person who maybe just has traded on chain for the first time. Maybe they only own Bitcoin. Maybe they're only crypto interested and they have not even bought crypto. These people have a lot higher friction and a lot lower willingness to actually do these things. So I think UX is something that was really, really important to us. Everything needed to feel almost Web2-esque, very smooth, no latency, no gaps, and a very joyful experience all around. I think a lot of what you create is, how do you create a joyful experience for the end user that's on the other side? And how do you get them to continue to feel good, to come back and share with friends? And I think a lot of crypto apps kind of make this a second-class citizen. I often find that to be a mistake when you're trying to build a consumer app distributed to millions, if not hundreds of millions of users. And another thing we did to kind of reinforce everything here, get to market quickly, be able to build relationships, co-build, is we really relied on a lot of very good third-party providers as we built. Obviously, as companies mature, you want to think about how do you continue to remove externalities, but we use a lot of third-party providers. We have Privy as embedded wallet. We use Define for charts and pricing data. We use Relay. We use all the aggregators, 0x, Jupiter, OKX, DFlow, and we really try to leverage the great technology that's been built by a lot of these very good teams. I think this allows you to get to market quickly. This allows you to essentially work on the most important parts to you. And allow yourself to partner with some of these providers to actually do the thing they do best. I think it's something that a lot of projects, typically spend too long getting to market, and by the time they're actually able to develop, meaningful user base, it's a little bit past what could have been a very good product market fit. And this is something that allows you to just get market quicker. So yeah, we are roughly 6 months into building FOMO. We add roughly 1,000 new users every day, and I think that there's still, a lot of work to do to get to product market fit, but it's something that we're really excited about as we currently stand as one of the top mobile crypto trading apps today. So yeah, this is our last and closing slide. I think FOMO at the end of the day is designed for real users, not just crypto natives. It's, like we mentioned in the first slide, a trading app for the rest of us. It's the first intuitive crypto ecosystem built around identity, discovery, and ease of use. And I strongly encourage you to try it. I think it's something that will meaningfully elevate your on-chain trading experience. It'll be seamless, it'll be abstracted, and it'll be super simple to use. And most of all, I think it'll be very easy for you to share with other people who maybe you've been trying to onboard crypto for some time.
Thank you, Say, for the great insight and sharing. Say, you here?
Yep.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing. And any final suggestion for the developers who are building in this field?
I think the final thing I would say is often there's people who want to build just to build, and there's people who want to build because they have something that they think can actually improve the space or change the way that the industry operates. I would say for the latter group, just really listen to the inner voice and try to find conviction around the thing you're trying to build. It's not easy to start a company. It's not easy to build a product 0 to 1. It's not easy to distribute. These are all things that are typically very difficult, and I think that a lot of people might find bumps in the road along the way. It's good to surround yourself with good people, whether that's advisors, whether that's a team, whether that's friends or other founders, and recognize that everything here should be a long-term game. There's a lot of short-term incentives, a lot of short-term projects, and at the end of the day, I think the greatest projects that will survive over the course of years and be the most successful are the ones who have long-term initiatives in mind. And that's a very daunting road. So I wish everybody who builds best of luck, and I really hope that we can continue to bring more and more users into the space of crypto.
Amazing. Thank you, Say, again for joining us today.
Thanks so much.
Okay, then next, let's welcome Apollo, CMO and co-founder of Thina. Hi, Apollo.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today to present about Thina. And today we're going to go explore how Thina has been pioneering a current major evolution in decentralized liquidity, and how you guys can innovate on top of it, and with some practical tips for developers looking to build on BNB Chain. So Thina was born from the first-hand experience with two core problems in DEX design. Basically, the cold start liquidity bootstrapping problem. Protocols, first of all, need deep liquidity to enable trading, but LPs won't join unless they're compensated for the risk, especially early on when the trading activity is too low to sustain a sustainable yield. And then we have the value distribution problem. Most DEXs must choose between rewarding LPs, token holders, or the protocol treasury. But it comes with, a challenge. You're usually over-favoring one group, typically over the other. So that's what we came to solve with what we call the VE33 model. So we introduced this token-first design built around the principle that token holders are the ones bearing inflation risk, and thus they should capture 100% of the protocol revenue, but only if they commit long-term. And that's how we kind of aligned our token holders with our model. So we have this gauge system where our VE Thina holders vote on a weekly basis on where the emissions go, allocating incentives across pools based on expected returns, so where they're the most productive. If a pool earns more fees, voters who supported it receive a larger share of the protocol revenue. And this creates a free market of incentives where voters behave rationally to maximize profit, and of course. And in doing so, we align the interests with the protocol-wide revenue optimization. And this has helped us to build a very loyal user base because the value flows back to the users. And to look at the practical example, let's take a look at an LST protocol, how they would be onboarded to Thena and how they benefit from this solution. So we basically allow protocols to deposit voting incentives, aka bribes. It's an ugly word, so we call them protocol incentives, to attract more emissions to their pool. And this creates an on-demand, scalable way to build your liquidity from scratch without needing to control the DEX or overpay for yield farming. So we say it's a capital efficient way to bootstrap liquidity. As the fees increase through trading activity, you generate more volume, you earn more fees. The need to spend on bribes declines over time, meaning protocols can eventually taper off those incentives altogether. And that in turn leads to self-sustaining liquidity. So here you can see it kind of progresses in phases. At the beginning, you need some incentives, but at the end, the pool will sustain itself. It's pretty simple in practice. Then to talk a little bit about how our AMM and routing design works. So we have this kind of intelligent routing where when you're swapping, for example, BNB to Bitcoin, it looks at the different pools, how much liquidity they have, which fee tier they have. By the way, our fee tiers are dynamic, so they adjust based on market conditions. And we also have this extra feature that allow, like, let's say there's the token doesn't exist on Thena. We also route through other BNB chain dexes like PancakeSwap and Uniswap. So it doesn't matter which token you're trading, you're still going to be able to swap, which is great for our users. What powers this all is algebra integral. That's our main AMM that we're using, and that's pretty similar to Uniswap v4, except with the difference that we say it's a little bit more gas efficient, even though BNB chain gas is so cheap nowadays that it's not maybe that relevant. But what's special about this AMM design that we have is that let's say there's a new plugin that introduces some extra feature that we want to implement into the DEX or the pool, specific pool. We can introduce that without redeploying the pool. So it's a very agile system to introduce new functionality to the pools. Let's say we have a pool that then a partner wants to introduce a KYC system, which will probably not happen for most pools, but if they wanted to, they could introduce that on the go. Overall, we have also other types of AMMs. We have one for stable coins, which is a curve-like stable pool AMM. So if you have a stable coin, we facilitate for that as well. We also have the traditional Uniswap v2 type of an AMM if you want to use that. So we try to offer our protocol partners like a wide range of tools that they can then utilize and then plug into our VE system. So it doesn't matter what kind of a token you have, we accommodate for that with our model. Then some practical tips for builders if you're looking to build either on top of Thena or in general on BNB Chain. What you start with is, of course, the most important part. You have to define the model that you're using and the architecture that you're going to use. So, for example, we chose the VE33 model for our DEX, and we chose an architecture that tries to rely as little as possible on proxies. But we wanted to enable the opportunity to plug in additional modules to our DEX. So it's quite flexible. It's not fully immutable. The parts that need to be immutable are, but the ones that we want to be able to upgrade later on, for example, are not. But you need to be careful with proxies and all of that, because security is the most important part, as always. Resource-wise, using AWS, like when you're choosing which tools you're going to use, which resources you're going to use for your app, I would recommend to use the kind of the market leaders, because they're usually the most reliable. Even though we had the recent AWS outage, they are a really reliable partner and much recommended one. Same when you're dealing with developers, it's important to note that usually the smart contract work is the one that is blocking the rest. So you need to put enough resources on that side, because otherwise you may be wasting time and resources. Then getting a bit more technical, our CTO was kind enough to give some practical tips for this part. He recommended using Foundry for developing smart contracts, testing, and scripting. A really good choice. For simulating and debugging transactions, Tenderly and BlockSec are the choices that we use. Very good UI, easy to use. So those are much recommended. For the front end, Vue and WACME, I guess if you're a developer, you know what these are. And for the back end, we're using the Graph, which has been a really good partner for us, and we recommend them as well. Then if you're building a prototype, some recommendations on that side. You should recycle the Foundry settings from your old project. If you have one, like a previous one, you can take advantage of that template, and you're going to save a lot of time. Then, since many people are vibe coding with AI these days, yeah, if you're building a prototype, it works. Simple tasks and all of that. It's getting better over time, but right now I would say, if it's nothing too complicated, yeah, it's great. It's a great tool to take advantage of. And if you're building a project from scratch, probably don't do it. If you're in a space like building a DEX, for example, you can take advantage by forking an existing repo if it doesn't, have some licensing or other requirements. You can learn a lot from the existing code and implement. Adjust based on that. Then wipe coding in production. Please don't do this. You're gonna end up with an exploit. If you've already done that, please check your work. It's not safe to use AI for everything, so you do need to be careful to not go over the board with wipe coding. Hiding private key, of course, security is super important, but still we've seen many projects do this mistake of exposing the private key in the code, and it doesn't end well. Same thing with the proxies. Like, if you don't need them, don't use them. Like, use them as little as possible. Being immutable is always better, but yeah, you need to choose your architecture carefully. And then for developers specifically, please take care of your health. Like, sitting 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day is not healthy. So we do recommend doing like physical exercise during the day so that you stay in good condition, and over the long term, it's really going to benefit you. Then going back to Tina, we chose BNB Chain, and we have been very happy with building on BNB Chain. And it's a massive ecosystem with a lot of opportunities, a lot of users, high activity, low fees, and great composability. So I would say it's the best EVM to build on right now. So if you're listening to this, you made a great choice with building on BNB Chain. You also get a lot of help from the BNB Chain Foundation, YZ Labs. There's a lot of entities that are going to help you out as you build along. So do your research into what resources there are available, or if you don't know, you can contact us and we'll guide you along, or contact BNB Chain. They're going to help you. So yeah, great choice. Also, as Thina, we are pushing developers to build on top of our platform. Whether you're a project or an independent developer, there are opportunities for you to build on top of Thina. And here we have some examples what you can build on top of Thina. AI agents are one massive thing that we are now already implementing, but also looking for builders who are building these kind of products that we can then implement into our DEX later on. Also, plugins are one of the main ones that we are looking at. There are endless opportunities to build in that front. For example, I put a KYC system here as an example, but it can really be anything that can plug into the AMM itself. And since we can upgrade our plugins on the go without redeploying the pools, we could implement your solution pretty easily into our DEX after, if of course it's audited and all of that. So we need to make sure the security is okay as well. But so many choices to build. Thina is basically this like a modular DEX into which you can plug in new pieces like Lego pieces. So there's a lot of things that we can do together if you're building on BNB Chain and building something related to a DEX. If you have more questions, you can contact me on Telegram. If you want to connect with our developers, I can also put you in touch with them or our business developers. If you're launching a token, we can help you out. So feel free to send me a message and maybe add like a BNB hack into the message so that I know that you listen to this presentation and I know that it's not spam or something like that. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Apollo, for sharing your experience and the insights. And everyone, do follow Thina on X for the latest updates. And feel free to reach out to Apollo if you have any question and support needed from Thina. And thank you again, Apollo, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all for today's session. And thank you to our speakers and everyone who joined us. Do register for the BNB Hack Abu Dhabi and join us on site. And see you later. Thank you, everyone.